Let me ask you something. What if the reason that you're not making more money isn't because of your experience? It's not because of your skills or even all your efforts that you're putting out there, but maybe it's the way you're thinking about what your value actually is, which is right up my alley in real estate. It's like, know your value. Well, today's guest has his own podcast with over 1,200 episodes. Wow. And he advises countless professionals in advice on how to recognize your value and charge what you're worth. And his entire career has been built around this one particular idea, and that is generosity. Yes, generosity. When it's done right, it's not giving away everything. It's actually the key to charging more. And it's the key to building trust faster and growing your business so that you actually have a business that's going to last. And that's what we're working so hard for, isn't it? So today, if you've ever struggled with pricing, positioning, and growth and confidence, because I believe a lot of this has to do with your confidence, then this episode with John Ray is going to help you. John has helped leaders make confident decisions and with integrity around their pricing, around their value to help them grow. Like I said, he's hosted over 1,200 episodes, and that's a lot. He brings thoughtful, articulate insights and real-world experience. So he is also the author of the book called The Generosity Mindset. I love that title, and we'll dig into that. So, John, thank you so much for joining me today.
Zelda, it's an honor, and thank you for that generous introduction. That was very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Well, I love this idea of generosity and giving things away. I've had this discussion with so many entrepreneurs that they think, I'm going to give everything away. I'm like, no, that's really not what you're doing. So let's dive into what started this conversation with yourself. I mean, how did you get into this and recognizing that generosity was the key?
Well, so I came out of corporate, and I came out of corporate like a lot of people do, thinking I knew a whole lot more than I really did. You know, it wasn't that I didn't have lots of skills. I had, tremendously honed skills and expertise to be able to offer my business clients at that time when I started my own business advisory practice. What I did not know was how to price that expertise. And the problem that a lot of people have when they come out of corporate and start their own business or wherever they come from is they can get a lot of help when it comes to things like marketing and accounting and a lot of different aspects of running your business. But when it comes to pricing their expertise, generally what they do, and I know this from my own experience, is that they look at what everyone else is charging and charge, something, maybe they discount a little bit because they're new, quote unquote, and the problem with that is everybody's pricing inadequately. So it's not a great way to benchmarking is not a great way to price. And so I learned the hard way, and I needed to fix myself. And so I needed to help clients that had this problem too. And so that's what got me passionate about this work and why I really dove into it as a specialty.
I would think that people who are in the service industry as opposed to retail probably have this. It's more difficult for them because they're having to say, I don't believe in trading dollars for time. To me, it's dollars for my expertise. So yes. How do you help them figure out what their price should be? Again, it's like, I love how you said, you don't want to be like everybody else. It's like if everybody else is charging $50, you don't want to charge $48 or $61. It's like, how do they get the confidence to know what they should be charging?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really what it revolves around is getting out of your own head, because frankly, me looking at others and pricing based on them is I'm in my own head at that point. I'm pricing, if I'm pricing by the hour, I'm not even pricing based on a client outcome. I'm pricing based on an input that has nothing to do with client transformation. Right. So the way to get out of this trap is to make it about others. This is how I define generosity. Thank you for saying it's not giving everything away, Zelda. I appreciate that. It is about getting out of your own head and getting into that of others. and where they see value and what their hopes, wants, dreams, anxieties, fears are, and how you can meet the value that they see. And when you do that, what you find is that clients see more value in you than you see yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Because what are we all infected by? We're infected by these little voices in our heads, the mindset of inadequacy, the mindset of comparison, imposter syndrome. You mentioned the mindset of helping. I just want to help everyone. Well, these things are
I can't help everybody.
Right. That's right. All these things are inhibitors. Yeah. And we've got to get those voices drowned out by what we hear from our clients.
I totally agree with that. It's, when we talk about generosity and giving away, I recall many years ago, a friend who owns a retail ice cream candy store. And at the beginning, when she was first networking in the groups that I was networking in, she was giving away that candy. And people thought, gosh, how is she doing all that? It's like, she doesn't have to do that anymore. It's like she built that up. And I have another person that I'm working with now, giving her a little bit of advice. I'm not a consultant, but she was asking me, what should I do? And I'm like, she sells candles. They're beautiful candles. They're very luxury. I mean, they could cost $100 for a set of 3. I mean, that's kind of pricey for a candle, but they're gorgeous and the aroma is wonderful. So I'm advising her to take some small samples of them, some smaller ones, and give them away so people learn who you are and get to know you. And then they'll see the value in what you're offering and they'll buy the more expensive ones. So it's giving things away. It's kind of reminded me of a book. Gosh, what was it? What's his name? He wrote the book about hospitality.
Oh, yeah. Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes.
What a great book.
Isn't that a good book? So yeah. I'm kind of thinking about what you're talking about in that way. So how do people get the confidence? Because we talked a little bit before. It's like, I have no problem telling my buyers and sellers, this is my fee and you got to pay it or go find a discount realtor because I'm not the discount person. So how do people build that confidence?
Well, part of it, first of all, I'm not a psychologist. And so I don't want to be practicing without a license here. But what I would tell people is when you make it about others and where they see value, and when you find out that they see intangible value in you and your work that goes beyond just the deliverables, beyond just what you do, when you see that, that's something you can lean on. Right. See, it's not your opinion about yourself. It's what somebody else says about you.
Absolutely.
Let's think about it this way. Like when you're growing up, and you had authority figures in your life, like let's say a grandparent or a teacher or a mentor or a friend who said things to you that you didn't recognize in yourself. I mean, like, hey, Zelda, got such a great way with people, or you did such a great way of explaining something that was really difficult for people to understand and explaining it in an easy to understand way. And some of those things, we hear these things from people and they surprise us, right? Because we didn't see that in ourselves.
Right.
And we hold on to those things for a long time, right? We get a lot of mileage out of that gasoline. And that it's the same way with clients. If you just ask clients where they see value and understand where they see value, then it really gets you out of this business about relying on your own confidence. You can just lean another way.
Do you see, John, when you're working with a client, that most of these professionals, at least when they start with you, they really do undervalue themselves and they don't even realize it?
Yes. I see a lot of professionals that have pricing problems that they don't even recognize as pricing problems. I've got what I call the red flags of inadequate pricing. I mentioned them in my book. They're also on my website, so feel free to go check that out. It's a free download. One of them is you're working too hard for too little money. That's generally a pricing problem.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is people misdiagnose that and think they've got some sort of marketing problem. That's not a marketing problem. And as a matter of fact, if you think it's a marketing problem and you start getting more clients, you will make the problem worse because you're getting clients that are not great fits for you and don't
they take up all your time.
Yes, they don't see the full value of what you can provide, and often they're just not willing to pay. They're price sensitive, not value sensitive. And so that's just one of the red flags is when you're working too hard for too little money, you have a pricing problem.
So you talk about value conversations. So what exactly does that sound like in a real conversation with a client?
Well, what it is getting beyond the reason the client called you, getting beyond just the deliverable and being more than an order taker.
Yes.
Right? So it instead of, can I use you as an example?
Absolutely.
Since I know how you do this. So see, I can use you as an example.
Go for it.
As opposed to, I call Zelda to help me sell my home. And Zelda says, well, tell me about why we're doing this. I mean, why are you making this move? Why is this important to you? What's the goal here?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it's to make a move, but what's the deeper motivation here, right?
Why are you moving?
Yeah.
That's the first question. It's like, why are you moving?
Right.
You got to know what their motivation is.
What would happen if you didn't move? See, asking a question that way, like what would happen if for some reason, I mean, I'm great at selling houses, don't get me wrong, but what would happen if you didn't move? What problem would that cause for you? When you start asking questions like that, you get into where people live. One of the questions I bet you've used this one, is when you're talking to one member of the married couple, okay, one of them, and you say, well, what does your spouse think about this? You see, when you start talking in terms like that, then you really get to see where people see value.
Yes.
And the problem is that a lot of us aren't willing to ask those questions. We think it's too invasive or we're too shy, that kind of thing. And I like to couch it in, it helps me if I understand you and what you're really looking for, what your needs, hopes, wants, and desires are. It's going to help me serve you better. In fact, it's going to help me figure out whether I'm a great fit for you, because I may not be the best fit for you.
Oh, yes. I've turned customers away.
Yeah. And when you can say that legitimately with any client, you're building trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to know what's motivating them to buy your widget, whatever your widget is. Like, yeah. Is it just necessity or is it whatever? And I do that. You're right, John, all the time. The first questions are, why do you want to sell your house? Or why do you want to buy a new house? I'm working with a lady now. It's awesome. She's like, I want to buy a house. I've never lived in a house. My entire life, I grew up in apartments. I've saved up the money. I can buy a house. And we found her house. She went under contract yesterday. And the excitement and the thrill of helping this woman live out her dream is so rewarding. So rewarding.
Well, yeah. And so what you were able to do, that's a great example, because what you were able to do is find her a home that was a much better fit for her than you would have otherwise, right? I mean, she's looking for something, features in a home that she couldn't get because she was in an apartment.
Absolutely.
She was looking for space.
She's got a backyard now and she owns everything, and it's wonderful. It's just such a wonderful feeling to be able to help them with that. It's like, yeah. And it's like, just because somebody says, I have X amount of dollars to spend, the first thing I let them know is just because you can afford $1 million home doesn't mean you're going to spend that, okay? So you earn their trust with whatever it is, like we were saying, whatever it is. So how do you shift from charging for your time to charging for a transformation for that client?
Well, what you've got to lean into is, once you understand this value that others see in you, what you find is if you price just to get a portion of that value, so value price, if you're willing to do that, what you will find is you will make more money than you were when you were pricing by the hour, when you were pricing for that input. That's what you'll find. I mean, I've never had a client that I work with who was switching from hourly to value where they didn't make more money. And the reason is because when you're pricing by the hour, you're not pricing to that value that clients see. And it's it's remarkable the change that you can make. So, I mean, I think that's the key, is just understand where clients perceive value and price to a portion of that value. And when you're talking to clients, always relate it back to the value they see.
It's so limiting if you just charge by the hour. I mean, because there's only 24 hours in the day.
Right.
And you got to go to sleep.
Well,
I do. Anyway, I have to go to sleep.
well, if you price by the hour, what you've got is, with all respect, you've got a shoe cobbler business.
Yeah.
The cobbler can only cobble so many shoes in a day.
Yep. That's what my mother used to say.
That's right.
Yeah. Like, be an entrepreneur and don't charge by the hour. Like,
right. You got a wise mom. Wise mom.
Yeah. Yeah. She was like, had a friend who was a dentist. She says, hey, he can only see so many people in a day, whereas your dad can work till whenever and get the job done. I'm like, yes. So tell me a little bit more about how generosity actually can deepen a relationship rather than weaken their position in business.
Yeah. So when your first concern is about the client and you're not approaching any interaction in a transactional way, you know, what can I get from this? Who can they refer to me? Or, you know, when can I do business with you? If you're just there to serve, and legitimately so, people see that. Mm-hmm. And in a world that's so transactional and so, well, full of carnival barkers and people that are always selling something, that's refreshing. And when you tell people, look, when they want to do business with you and they initiate a conversation, and when you say things like, look, let's just agree that we're not going to do business unless the value that I can give you is greater than the price you pay. And if we can't figure that out, then I'm going to refer you to somebody that can.
Yeah.
And when you can say things like that legitimately and back that up, those are trust builders. And that's generosity.
That's true. Can you share a story of someone who you saw really make an incredible transformation from where they started with you and then where they ended? Can you share one of those stories with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, this will resonate with you, the work you do. I worked with a senior move manager, a woman who owned a senior move management company. Now, that's a you've got highly emotional situations that you're working with. I mean, you're working with people that it's most likely the last move they'll ever make. And in that move, they're doing a lot of downsizing. They're getting rid of a lot of items they'd rather not have to get rid of.
Yep.
Because they're downsizing. And so the quality of how you do that is so important. And this lady had this figured out, right? She knew how to go in and establish a rapport with, I'll say mom, you know, because she's often working for the adult child who's hired her, right? And so she knew how to do that. But what she didn't realize is how much value that really her clients saw in that, particularly the adult child who's dreading this situation, right? And is delighted that someone can come in that's experienced, that has done this many times before and can handle this. Yeah. So what we did was we introduced options for her along the lines of kind of good, better, best options. And so that clients could choose what level of service that they wanted. And what she reported in her first year is that her revenue was up 40 to 50% just from that pricing change, not from the additional volume, but just the pricing change. And I recently spoke with her, and she was so pleased because she had talked to someone who had surveyed 3 different movers, her being one of them. And she said, this gentleman came back and said, you know, when thinking about what I wanted for my mom, you are the most expensive of the 3, but we decided you're the best.
Like she was
we hired you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. In fact, I'm actually meeting with a senior move specialist this week. Like, let's talk to her about being on the podcast. So, it's all about life transitions, isn't it? No matter what it is, if it's a work, if it's your home, whatever it is. So if someone's listening now and they feel like they're stuck, they're underpaid, they're undervalued, they're not sure, what's the first mindset shift that they really need to make?
The first one is to realize that you're not alone. You're not alone. I mean, look, I'm all dressed up and fancy, but I've had these issues myself. We all have these issues of insecurity around our worth. So you're not alone. And therefore, don't worry about what's in your head. Think about what your clients see and where they see value. One of the suggestions I give people, and this is one of the things I do with clients when we first start out, is we do a study of their reviews. Look at your testimonials, look at your reviews and see what clients say about you. And what they say, they don't necessarily say, well, John did so much better for me on my pricing. They'll say that, but they'll say other things too, like talk about empathy and so easy to talk to. And I felt like, I could share my deep problems. And so, those are intangibles that have tremendous value. Pay attention to those. This is why we need to ask for reviews, folks. We don't do enough of that. Ask for reviews, right, Zelda?
Guilty. Yeah,
We're all guilty. We're all guilty, right?
Yes,
yeah. But do a study of your reviews and see what you find. You'll see where clients see value.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, oh, you're making me feel bad.
Well, I bet you they'll find a lot of.
I get told this all the time. It's like, Zelda, you need to go get some more reviews. I'm like, I know, I forget.
Well, I'm reminding myself.
There
so we're all there.
We're all there. Oh, That's great. So, John, if people want to, our listeners out there, they want to get in touch with you, they want to connect, how can they get in touch with you?
Thank you so much again for having me, Zelda. This has been fabulous. Yeah, John at johnray.co is my email address. Feel welcome to email me directly. My website is johnray.co. If you go to the book tab there on my website, there's free resources there. I mentioned the red flags of inadequate pricing. There's some sample value conversation questions that might give you some prompts on the kind of questions you ought to ask in a value conversation. And feel welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. John Ray 1 is the place to do that. That's great. It's a great place to connect with you. So I have a final question, my signature question I like to ask all my guests. And that is, has there ever been an opportunity that presented itself to you because of a connection that you had, or that you were able to open the door for someone else because of that connection that you had? Yes. So I got referred by someone who was an employee of a company that I did some pricing work for. Not the owner, but an employee, because that employee saw that how much better the company was doing because of my work, and they referred their sibling, their brother, into me. And what that reinforced for me, you know this intellectually, but you love it when it happens, you see it live, is that don't judge where people are. People, don't judge their business card, don't judge their rank, their title, because they have a tremendous network too. And they have a network that can help you if you're open to that. So it's not about the person per se, it's about that network that they have and the connections they have, they can make for you if you're willing to be open to that. Be kind to everybody. Be kind to everybody. Be kind to everybody. You never know who knows who. And I've had that happen to me on this podcast. I've mentioned I had actually Bob Berg, the Go Giver, one of the co-authors. He was on the show and I said, we mentioned the name Randy Gage. And he's a very well-known speaker. And he goes, well, he's a friend of mine. I'll hook you up with him. And before I knew it, within 10 minutes after the show, I was scheduling Randy to be on the podcast. It was so awesome. And by the way, I listened to that show, folks. And if you haven't gone back and listened to Zelda's interview with Randy, it's fantastic. I loved it. It was Zelda. So great work there. I'll tell you another one you might actually like. Recently, I had a fellow named John Palumbo. Excellent. So I'm going to recommend that one again and this one as well with John Ray, because this is right up my alley. I love this. So I want to remind our listeners
to hit that subscribe and follow, because every week we have a new episode. And just remember that success does not happen in isolation. It happens because of the conversations and the connections that we create. And so that is this week's episode of Success Through Connections. And I'll see you next week with a new episode.